But we thought we'd have bike days. Absolutely. You know? What a great idea. Yeah.
Hey, how are you? I'm so glad you're here.
Everybody can get their seat, please.
My name is Kim Ferreira, and I'm the Vice Chair of the South Coast Bikeway Committee, and I also work with Massive Motion New Bedford. I'd like to welcome you all to our second South Coast Regional Bike Summit. We're delighted to have you all here tonight for an informative and exciting discussion and evening. It's great to see so many of you, especially we know that you're very, very busy people, so thank you for taking the time tonight to learn more about how we can create a biking infrastructure for the South Coast region. I want to just briefly go over a few things about the South Coast Bikeway for those of you who are unfamiliar with our major goals and our recent successes. The committee includes a very dedicated group of people, and we have come a long way in such a short period of time. One of our major goals of the committee, and a reason why we're here this evening, is to develop an off-road bikeway connecting the 10 South Coast communities. This pathway covers roughly 50 miles from Swansea to Wareham and has been designated as part of an East Coast Greenway alternate route from Providence to Provincetown. That felt good. So currently the off-road path consists of about 7 miles in the communities of Swansea, Somerset, Fall River, Fairhaven, and Mattapoisett. On the map, if you can see it, there are other maps in the back, so hopefully you guys can take one on your way back. It's the green paths, it's the green lines you can see on that map. Another major goal of ours is to create on-road connections between the South Coast communities. And on this map, it's the little green, it's the blue sections. And it's about 5.7 miles, mainly in the community of Swansea, but most recently Dartmouth has added about 3/4 of a mile to the route. Other functions of the committee include coordinating bicycling efforts between all the communities and advocating for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. We have accomplished quite a bit over the past year, and I wanted to go over a few highlights. We have formed an organized committee with officers just as of September 2012. We received a generous grant of $3,500 from the Narragansett Bay Wheelmen, and that allowed us to promote the South Coast Bikeway through a variety of ways. Through our brochures and our stickers, which you'll see through the back, our big beautiful banner that you guys saw when you walked in, and most importantly, we have these signs designating the South Coast Bikeway, which are now shown on all of our existing paths. We've had a bike safety event at UMass Dartmouth with Bill DeSantos. We've had some bike rides. We've recently developed an outreach committee who have already provided some presentations to the Standard Times and the Herald editorial board, both of which fully support the committee. An important highlight is that most of our South Coast communities have formed their own bicycle and pathway communities, and they all support the effort to create a South Coast Bikeway. These local communities are raising a tremendous amount of awareness for the need of a safe biking infrastructure. I'll touch upon a couple future projects that are underway shortly. The first one is the Fall River Quikasham River Rail Trail, which construction is supposed to begin as early as the summer of 2013. This project is funded through the Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Gateway City Project, along with other state and federal funds. The other project, which is programmed for state and federal funding in 2016, is the Mattapoisett Phase 1B multi-use path. Other plans are underway for future bike safety events and promotion coming up in May, which will be Biking to School Day and Bay State Bike Week. And we, of course, are going to do continued outreach to the local businesses and organizations. We could not have done any of this work without the collaboration of SERPED, which is the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District. It's a mouthful. For the past 2 years, we have worked very closely with Adam Recchia, who has been so instrumental to our work. Unfortunately, he has moved on to new adventures. He just started his new job in the DC area today, so we can't thank him personally, but we wish him all the best. I would like to acknowledge his replacement, Jackie Schmidt. We welcome you, Jackie, and we're really looking forward to working with you more. So there's been a huge amount of progress made, but we still have a tremendous amount of hard work ahead of us. We look forward to working and collaborating with all of you so that we can continue to create more biking opportunities in the South Coast. So now I'd like to introduce the chair of the South Coast Bikeway, Selectman Bob Espandola.
Kim did all the heavy lifting, so I have just a brief couple notes for you here. What I'd like to do is just introduce our steering committee to you, and I'd like them to stand, if they would, when I introduce them, and the town that they're from. If all the people that are here tonight from that town could also stand. We're hoping to have people make visual connections, and some of you might not even know each other from your own town but have the same interests. So we're going to start here in Dartmouth, since they're our host tonight. So Alan Carew, he's from Dartmouth, and anybody else from Dartmouth here, if you could stand, appreciate it. And from New Bedford, we have Freddie Escamera. Freddie, broken arm and all. Everybody else from New Bedford here. From Fairhaven, that's myself and Ken Patel. I see a number of other people. If you could stand, please. From Mattapoisett, Bonnie D'Souza is in the back at the volunteer table. And anybody else from Mattapoisett, if you could stand, please. From Marion, Kurt Rippendale, here he is. And anybody else from Marion that's here tonight, please stand. Wareham, Ellen Algor, she is, and her husband's here. And anybody else from Wareham? West Fortescue, Roderick, she's in the back selling t-shirts. She's up there. And anybody else from Westport that's here? Hi, Gail. From Fall River, it's Brian Pearson over on the side here. Anybody else from Fall River here tonight? Somerset, we don't have a participant from Somerset on our committee at this time. We're looking. Is there anybody from Somerset here tonight?
Put them on the committee.
Second Wednesday next month. Okay. Next is Swansea. Similarly, we're missing someone from Swansea. Anyone from Swansea here tonight? Okay, so anybody close to Swansea, let someone over there know we need help. But as you can see, we have quite a bit of participation in our a good group together. We're really making some solid progress in the last year, and this outreach is incredibly important. So we hope that this connection that you make tonight will be the genesis of something special. The other thing I'd like to mention is someone that's not officially a member of our steering committee, but is from Carver. Her name is Jennifer Bogart, and she's come to a number of our meetings. I don't believe she's here tonight, but the path doesn't even run through Carver, but she's so interested in what we're doing and hoping to make that connection someday that she's been coming to our meetings. We also have partners that we work with that Kim mentioned, Serped, but also from the UMass Sustainability Office is Jamie Jacquard and Susan Jennings. I know Voices for a Healthy South Coast. Bonnie Bonnell is here tonight.
Nancy. We have other Voices members here. Stand up, other Voices.
Sorry, Nancy. And then Mass in Motion is also one of our partners, and we have a couple of members here, Kim and Julie, and others, Pauline, and anybody else from Mass in Motion? Okay, so that's that's all I wanted to do with you tonight, and we're going to come back and speak a little bit later about what, after the two guest speakers here tonight, we'd like to talk a little bit more at the end about what some of the local bike path committees are doing. We've had some really exciting things going on, especially in Dartmouth and Fall River, so stick around to the end, we'll talk about that. And so right now, I would like to introduce the mayor of Fall River. He's the Honorable William Flanagan. He's here to speak with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
First, let me say it's an honor to be up here, to be talking about connecting the communities throughout southeastern Massachusetts through bicycle paths. And first, let me say I'm really extremely impressed with the turnout we have here this evening with the various communities who are represented. And speaking specifically to Fall River, as the mayor of the community, I recognize the positive impacts that bicycle paths have on our community. First, there's the fitness aspect of it. Getting people out on a bicycle, exercising, improving the quality of their life, and working with agencies such as Mass in Motion or Partners for a Healthy Community in Fall River. We're doing our best to promote healthy living lifestyles. But there's also, outside of the fitness aspect of it, there's the transportation aspect too, and working with agencies such as SERPED, making sure that this is a form of transportation that citizens can use. And if we're able to connect Wareham and Fall River and New Bedford and Mattapoisett and Marion and Somerset and Swansea and all the other communities in between, you're developing a very concrete form of transportation within the community. And it's great to see all these communities connect here tonight. Usually you see citizens come together from a cross-section like this on very issues that they're passionate about. And speaking with the members of this committee, I can understand their passion that they have about biking. So when we sit down as a community and we speak with people from SERPED or the legislature, we're advocating for projects like these because I see the economic impact that these types of projects can have on a community and the improvements that they can have on a community. So when we work on projects in Fall River, like the Quikasham River Rail Trail, which is about 2 miles of pathway, which is going to be a connector, or also a scenic pathway in our city, it's a project that I can fully support, even especially during these difficult economic times that our various communities are experiencing. So I'm proud to be able to be here with you to give greetings on behalf of the city of Fall River, but also just to say keep it up, because as a mayor of a community, I recognize the good work that you as an organization are doing, and mayors like myself or Mayor Mitchell in New Bedford or representatives in our legislature like Bill Strauss are doing the best we can to support you on the initiatives because we see the positive impacts that are generated from these types of projects. So I have to head back to the city, but I felt it was important for me to be here to show our support, and also want to wish you all a happy Easter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Flanagan. So we also have the Assistant Chief of Staff from the Mayor's office, Mayor Mitchell's office, that would like to speak tonight. She did make a call and let us know she's running a little late. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Ken Patel, and he's going to introduce the next speaker, and we'll have Christina Connolly step in between our two speakers. And, so Ken Patel from Fairhaven.
Thank you, Bob. About 14, 15 years ago, we were involved in the project in Fairhaven, and Craig came down and gave a presentation right before we actually went into the process of voting at a town meeting, and his presentation was great, and he's been fighting these wars, or I shouldn't say wars, but he's been fighting these battles all over the state and outside of Massachusetts. For 20 years, Craig kind of marketed rail freight and planned to start up in the operation and operated two of the Northeast's largest rail transloading facilities. He has a background in railroad history, and in 1994 was invited by a regional publisher to author several books on old rail lines and their conversion to bike and hike trails. He then got involved in the politics of how these conversions took place, and in 1998 was hired by the National Rails to Trails Conservancy as a legislative agent and political organizer in the New England region. In the 10th anniversary issue, the Ride magazine named him as the most effective advocate for rail-to-trail issues on the eastern seaboard. In 2003, he became a realtor with a special niche, specializing in the sale of houses near to or next to rail trails, greenways, or other conservation lands. The unique real estate practice was recently featured in two national realtor trade magazines, a Boston Globe editorial, an article in the Wall Street Journal, and in United Airlines in-flight magazine, Hemispheres. He is one of the country's most in-demand public speakers on the subject of rail trails and residential real estate in the United States, and has given over 1,200 lectures on these subjects in 19 states and Canadian provinces. He has helped build over 1,000 miles of rail trails in the past 15 years. Along with his wife Kathleen, he has operated Sugar Maple Trailside Inn, a bed and breakfast located in the nicely restored 1865 farmhouse in Northampton's village of Florence. The house sits 8 feet away from the southern New England's first municipally built operated rail trail. The renovation was recently featured on HDTV's Restore America program. So I welcome Craig Delapenna.
People are members of a local Rotary Club, or Kiwanis Club, civic organization. Good, because this has to be more than just bike advocates. This is very important to broaden this out. April 1999, I was here. Does anybody know what this is? Fair Havens, big opening. Can anybody tell me why that was notable? It's the first pathway built in Massachusetts using the old ICE-T funds from the federal government. Mass Highway, as they're known then, now Mass DOT, they never even showed up for the ribbon cutting. That's how much they thought of this stuff. It was like a little sideline. We don't care. And so that gave me the opportunity. And I was doing 2 or 3 lectures a week like this. I beat them up for, well, till August of 2000. This was the next trail to be opened in Massachusetts. This is in the Berkshires. And on the right there is Matt Amarello, who was then Commissioner of Mass Highway. I'm a former lobbyist for Rails to Trails Conservancy. I know everything about transportation policy geekdom. I beat them up so much that he had an all-hands-on-deck event here. Everybody from Mass Highway District 1 showed up, and all the senior staff from 10 Park Plaza in Boston showed up. Do you know why? Because this is the only kind of ribbon cutting they could hold that people would actually come out and smile at them. I'm not being serious. This is the real deal. With the stimulus project of a few years ago, and the governors in Wisconsin, Florida, and Ohio turning down passenger rail money, it came to us. Thank you very much. We're now going to have 79-mile-an-hour track next to our rail trail. Here's the MBTA, operational rail with trail in Dorchester, Milton, with the little old antique PCC cars. 43,000 feet, the same 100 acres, I should say, translates into being 43,000 feet long. We can't allow them to be sold off. There's a program in the state government that allows you as citizens to buy from a railroad corridor, and you could stop a trail. There's been several places where that has happened, where anti-path people have bought corridor to block. And I'm now there, I live and breathe this stuff, and I block them out. I find someone to do this. Or if I'm the last resort, I'll do that. Now, within 100 miles of my house in Northampton, there are over 200 projects underway. This is the densest network in North America. This isn't obscure, forgotten coal mine branch lines where no one lives. These all connected to big, huge antediluvian mill complexes that were all part of our communities. That mill has closed down or has been converted to modern uses. The dead railroad corridor network is still there, waiting to be rediscovered. You can reassemble these. Brought together this idea of this 100-mile rail trail in Massachusetts. And we call it the Mass Central Rail Trail. And actually, you start seeing, now this is like 10 years driving this, and DCR, the State Parks Agency, has finally adopted this because now they call all sections of this trail, like the Nowatic Rail Trail or the Wayside Trail, which is coming back to life now, they call it Mass Central Rail Trail Wayside Segment or Nowatic Segment. And so this is things take place slow. They plow the trail in the winter. It has made the leap from purely recreational to becoming transportation. And that is your goal. They plow the Minuteman Trail because the experience that we had in Northampton was translatable to them. We taught them how to do it. And Borging, how many people remember the old Star Trek years ago? Mm-hmm. Yes, you Borg, those characters there. If they touched you, you did their bidding. And that's what I do. I Borg organizations. Massachusetts DOT used to be very unfriendly to this stuff or ambivalent about it, but now they're very much in favor of it. And you've got to bring more than just bicycles groups or bicycle fans into your organization, all your little town committees. You have to have rail fans there. You have to get the Rotary clubs involved. You have to get stories out in regional magazines. The Yankee magazine used to call me quarterly looking for good stories. Garden clubs. The Rutland Railroad's Corkscrew Division out of Benton, Vermont, going down to Chatham, New York, is being reassembled to a degree by partnering with garden clubs. Birding clubs in Western New York, where the Roger Torrey Peterson estate is, and there's a lot of birders out there. They're building the rail trails. They couldn't imagine calling them bike paths. This, and the guy on the left here, he's a developer of Shaw's Supermarkets in New Hampshire. The guy on the right is one of my battle-hardened veterans of the to-do in Manchester, New Hampshire. And he approached Shaw's and said, if you help build our trail, we'll be supportive of your supermarket in our neighborhood. And that's what happened. Shaw's built the trail. I love taking walks on Anti-Street. All these things people have said is going to happen if the trail is built, and it's not really true. And this was true, years ago. This is the wildlife on our trail in Northampton. We have bears in town. We have 20 bears on the trail, but this is your typical dead railroad. You have a group come together. You start cleaning it up. Volunteer spirit arrived back in the area back in mid-2000s. 2008, when the price of gas first went to $4 a gallon, a big shift took place. It's very hard to sell houses in some communities now because they're out of the village center. Village centers are the place to be. You heard it here. That's where the downturn, I've been a realtor 10 years, never had a foreclosure, never had a short sale. I'm only here for fun, and I'm not doing unfun things. And there's hardly any of that stuff because I do stuff in the village center type of work. And this is what happens when you have people in the village center getting together. Some of this is in Natick, it's everywhere. Of course, the counties in New York don't have the money to blow the leaves off the trail, so this woman got her own gas-powered leaf blower, but most of the time she does it with a broom. But what makes her unique is that she's 70 years old, and she does it on rollerblades. This is the kind of community spirit you will reinvigorate. On deck is John.
I guess the question is, how do we do this now that we're all excited, Craig? So I'm going to introduce the man who's going to tell us something about that. John Walkie is the Massachusetts field organizer for both the National Transportation Advocacy Group, Transportation for America, and the local coalition, Transportation for Massachusetts. In that capacity, he works out on transportation policy and project concerns around the state, assisting its member organizations of the coalition to advocate for investments in the transportation infrastructure to support the 21st century needs of all Massachusetts residents. Previously, John worked on environmental issues with the Urban Ecology Institute, and that allowed him to be coming down here working in Fall River, and he noted that that allowed him to taste Everett Castro's blueberry pie, and I have had the pleasure of that as well. So John is going to be talking about the impacts of active transportation programs, biking, walking, and complete streets programs on the potential and actual policy developments both on Beacon Hill and in Washington. John Walkie.
It's a hard act to follow because it's not exactly the most scintillating material to follow it up with. You know, here's what's happening on Beacon Hill and here's the numbers, and you probably have been seeing some of this going on. So I just want to give sort of a flavor, and in particular in relation to some of these great ideas that we've just heard about, what are the sources of money for that, and what are some of the possible things that are going to happen to those sources of money. What's available, what's going to be coming, and what may not be coming. So I don't want to do death by 1,000 PowerPoints, so we'll quickly shoot through a couple of them, and you should feel free to throw out questions or clarification if there's something that doesn't sound straight. But I just want to talk a little bit about where things currently stand, and I don't know if Chairman Strauss is still in the room, because he could definitely correct what's going on. I mean, you're lucky to have the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Committee in your neighborhood down here. But we'll talk a little bit about MassDOT's plan. They call it the Way Forward, and what the governor has proposed and what's been the conversation of the last week or two. We're actually in the thick of it right now on Beacon Hill about what is going to roll out in terms of transportation funding from the state. I want to talk a little bit about Transportation for Massachusetts, which is the coalition group which SERPED and Mass Public Health Association, who are both in the room here tonight, are both members of that coalition. And then talk a little bit, in putting my sort of federal hat on, and speak a little bit about the federal scene. You guys are probably very used to, if you're been pursuing rail trail kind of projects, you're familiar with chasing money through the TIPS and SIPs and all sorts of acronyms of the MPO and the federal programs that those local entities are leveraging for funding. And there's been last summer some legislation that passed that has changed a few things. So I'll jump off in terms of what they've referred to as the governor's plan about a month ago or so. Actually, a couple months ago, I was down here when Rich Davey, the Secretary of Transportation, was doing his tour, and he swung across on the other side, the UMass campus here, and they were having their their 21st century transportation plan, where they were taking in information from the public. And I think Secretary Davey has it tattooed on his arm at this point, and most people know the thing that he says every time is, the transportation system we currently have we can't afford, and the one we want we definitely can't afford. So he went around and did that, and so he tells you that we can't afford it, but tell me what you'd like. And then everyone said all the different things that they wanted, like some of the projects that we've just had described here. And they took all that back. They did actually document everything that everybody said, including Jim, when you said, raise my taxes. They documented all of that stuff, and it got sort of chewed in the mill, and the DOT put out their report, which is available on their website, so you can download that and get the details. And it basically laid out what the needs were. It put out a 10-year, roughly around a $13 billion capital investment plan, and colors might be a little bit hard to see here, but just to summarize it, because the details are too nauseatingly boring to go into, but a large chunk of this big 10-year plan is going to basically maintenance and fixing parts of the system that aren't working right. So one of the things that you may have heard mentioned by Rich Davey and others has been the idea that we've been paying for salaries on the credit card. For every dollar we're paying, we're then paying interest on it. It's the equivalent of paying your electrical bill with your credit card, and then next month you have the next electrical bill and the previous month one, but it's on your credit card, now you're paying interest. So we've been using some of our capital money to pay for the operations, whether that's at MassDOT and the guys who cut the grass on the median strips, or similar kinds of things with the MBTA. And even at the RTA level, which is pertinent for down here, a lot of the federal money we get, Massachusetts has a good reputation for being able to flex the money, they call it, of being able to use some of the money that is for capital expenses. We managed to get it to make sure the RTAs are running, that they're operating. And so a big chunk of this money here, about $250 million, is to really just stop that practice, to stop doing what anyone, if you've got a problem, your house is in foreclosure, and you've got debt collectors calling you. When you go to one of those debt counselors, the first thing they say is consolidate things, live within your means. And that's what a big chunk of this is, to get ourselves living in our means again, of making sure that our operations are fully funded. So the money that we do get that's for capital investments, like new buses or new trains or new projects, that actually goes into those things. And an equivalent amount is also in there for the MBTA, as a lot of people have heard, big dig debt and things like that. There's the MBTA gets a chunk of your sales tax, a penny from there, and the sales tax, unfortunately that kind of plan came in right before the economy tanked, so sales tax didn't do as well as was expected, and then on top of it, some of the estimates on their costs were low. So the MBTA kept going into a hole. So just trying to get ourselves up to above water is what a large chunk of this ambitious, quote-unquote ambitious plan is about. And then modernization projects here is a relatively small chunk of that $13 billion. And that includes this red piece right here you see is South Coast Rail, so something that's near and dear to people's hearts here. And then a few other projects. These are the ones that the governor called out in terms of the South Station. They called it expansion. I prefer to think of it as restoration because South Station originally was that size. Finishing up the Green Line extension into Somerville and Bedford, a couple of other projects. And in here, Larry, there is bicycle and pedestrian facilities at 0.84%. So there is an increase in there, and we do want to talk about some of that. Relative to the organizer in Minnesota or in Illinois or in parts of California, they're fighting, the local folks and the local MPOs and regional planning groups are fighting their state DOT because they want to throw the money into roads, and nothing in their road money is going towards bike lanes. And here at MassDOT, they're doing things like having this mode shift goal, this idea of tripling the share of travel in the state by bicycling, transit, and walking. They're making a commitment to that, which is fantastic, and it's something that helps put Massachusetts out there as a leader. They have this Green Dot plan, so trying to create a more sustainable transportation infrastructure, and bicycling is a huge part of that. There's a growing awareness on the part of bureaucrats in the transportation building of everything that Craig has just talked about, of the economic benefits of this kind of stuff, of the health benefits that for mass in motion and mass public health. That's been the message that's been going out there. In fact, there's a caucus meeting on Tuesday at the State House. The Prevention for Health Caucus is going to be talking about the health effects of active transportation. These kinds of things are percolating and getting into Boston, getting into the State House, and getting into the 10 Park Plaza. And people are seeing the benefits of this. So you guys are perfectly positioned. The fact that there's so many people here tonight and from so many different towns is fantastic. So we need to make sure that the projects that we have the kind of backing by a broad group, that they're well thought out, that they're bought into by the municipalities involved, and there's a show of support so that these kinds of competitive grant cycles that you'll be going through, that your projects will rise to the top. And I want to stop there. And I guess maybe afterwards we can take questions or however you want to do it.
Thank you, John. I think that'll be the best way to do this, is to have all three speakers tonight. Representative Bill Strauss is here. He's going to be up next. I'm going to say a couple words first, but at the end you can open questions to any one of the three speakers. But just a couple words first. So the message we're hearing is how great bicycle paths are, what they can do for our communities, you know, how fun they are, how economically beneficial they are to us, and that there's a lot of money out there. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to organize people in our area to make the best case for us to receive that funding, because we're not the only ones that they're going to be looking for that $430 million if that passes. They're going to be competing interests in other parts of the state looking to do the same thing we're doing. So we need to be strong. We need to be educating as many people in our communities as we can to make sure that they understand how important this is, how potentially beneficial this is to us. And that's where tonight's really important, and we hope that you'll stay involved. At the back of the room, we have Bonnie D'Souza from Mattapoisett Group signing up volunteers. If you're interested in helping us out, we need people to help us plan events. We need organizers, people writers that might be interested in helping us apply for grants, advocating to the community, technical expertise on web maintenance, graphic design, etc. There's a lot of areas. If you see here, she'll give you even more examples. Another thing, I'd like to give a little plug for some of the events that we have coming up throughout our local communities. On April 11th, we have Steve Miller from Walkable Streets. If you could stand for us, Steve. You could talk to him after if you have a chance. We've got some brochures on the side about what he's going to be presenting. But he's already presented to the city of New Bedford, and it was just so well received. Some of our people from Fairhaven went, and we said we've got to have him come to Fairhaven and do the same thing. So April 11th at 7 p.m. we have him coming to the town hall in Fairhaven to do a talk with us. He's going to review our town facilities beforehand and have some good recommendations for us that night. On May 11th, the New Bedford Bicycle Committee is hosting a bicycle rodeo. In the back, Freddie, if you have any questions, you can see him and Pauline and Tony. Tony, I'm sorry. Tony's here. Okay, he's the key organizer for the event. He's got his hand raised in the back. In Fairhaven, we have 2 bicycle rides that we're organizing, and that's going to be a common theme. We're going to try and get people out on their bikes in the communities to try and ride as groups and try to raise awareness. This is what we like to do, and this is how we think it would be helpful to get people together. First, Bonnie is involved with Mattapoisett Harbor Days, and we're going to have a group set up there to help advocate for this group at the Harbor Days. So next speaker for tonight is State Rep Bill Strauss. He's going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the legislature right now and these very key, important issues that we have for funding. So, Bill, if you could on up.
Thank you, Bob. I don't in any way want to denigrate any of my colleagues in the legislature, but I have a feeling that one of the reasons I was asked to be here, so you know something about me, is while I've been in the legislature for Mattapoisett for 20 years, I am and have been for a while the chairman of the Transportation Committee. So it's possible I have some familiarity with some of the topics you've heard about tonight. It's always a pleasure to be on the program with Craig. I was saying to somebody earlier today that I was coming to this event, and Craig Della Penna was going to be part of the program. And they said, well, who's he? And I paused for a second, and I thought, well, he's kind of like a bike path evangelist. And I think that's a fair description. I've been at meetings over many, many years with Craig, and I don't know how you do it, but it's great that you do. My own personal passion in this has developed over the years. I remember probably 25 years ago, my in-laws were living at the time in Bristol, Rhode Island, prior to the construction of that path, and I assume almost everybody in this room has been there. And my father-in-law's house at that time, they moved Florida, abutted what is now the path, but then was simply the abandoned rail corridor. And he went to some local meetings, and he was worried, concerned, thought, what's this going to mean? And the path goes all the way up to East Providence. And the path came in, and it was, from his perspective, as well as mine, just fabulous. No interference, no bad people, just a great, for him, immediate access to the path itself. And of course, when it came time to sell the house, when he knew he and my mother-in-law were moving to Florida, they listed the house, literally, for one day. And the only reason mentioned by the people who came on the first day it was listed was we had to be near the bike path. And as Craig has told you, look at the real estate listings anywhere these paths go in. And as an economic reality, no one's going to say, I don't think, no one's going to say something bad about the house when they put it on the market. And look, particularly in Rhode Island, you see it, how many people in those words they pay for in the listing identify either abutting or access to the bike path. That tells you. So when people say it's going to kill my value or my property, and we went through this in Mattapoisett, that's not what the record shows. Certainly we've had quite a history even getting our first mile in Mattapoisett done. We had some just incredible, slug it out, nasty town meetings, and like many towns, we found and experienced the fact that the first people who volunteer to be on the local bike path development committee sometimes, often, are the opponents. They know, get on the path committee to help kill it. So my advice is always to selectmen when these things come in, and I believe in public participation and access and hearing from everybody, but why you would bend over backwards to be fair to people who are against a project that you're creating a panel to implement has never made sense to me. Have everything in public, take input from everybody, but the committee you appoint to pursue the bike path should be people who believe in it. I've seen this so many times. Now, what's happened, happily, in Mattapoisett is, as we got the first mile completed, I knew what a success story it was when one of the corner abutters at the place where the first mile ends, who came to every meeting, spoke against it, listened or heard, and then spoke some more against it. When I saw her pushing a baby carriage with a grandchild on the bike path, I knew it was done. And for all the town meetings I went through, where people were just, at each other in either favor or opposed to the bike path, now if you go to a Mattapoisett bike path, the common question that the advocates get, Bonnie knows this, is, why isn't it done yet? What are you waiting for? I don't get it. And you're like, don't you remember 10 years ago? So when they come in, people gravitate to them. So let me just say a couple things from the state level. One of the great opportunities I've had is to get to work on issues that I love, and that includes transportation. I promise Craig, I will alter his future remarks. One of the reasons I think it's great that everyone is here tonight, and the reason you have to keep coming to meetings like this is it makes a difference. You don't know when you come to one of these meetings who you're going to interact with, who you're going to speak with, that causes something to happen. And first example I'm about to give. 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, I attended a meeting with Ken and Bob and some others in the Fairhaven Town Hall, just about the Bikeway, the regional, extended regional one from Rhode Island all the way to the Cape. And one of the issues that Ken and Bob indicated was, which was news to me, and I talk to Rich Davey just about every day. I don't think he's happy about that, but I do. Was a problem that has been occurring at the regional planning level, but now for advocates, of an express policy that Craig identified in his remarks that the state is opposed and will not favor and will not assist shared rail bike paths. And so I said that night, number one, I'll look into it. Two, it just doesn't sound right. And then this came up when Secretary Davey was at the Advanced Technology Center in Fall River a few weeks ago. Some of the people probably in this room brought up this issue to him. He and I have had several conversations, and as you had indicated, there was internally at the staff level within the Mass Department of Transportation an antipathy, if not open hostility, to allowing bike paths on the same corridor with rail lines, despite any picture you probably emailed them, left at their door, whatever. So I am happy, here's the news part of the event, it's kind of amusing because what I insisted in convincing Rich to change the policy was I'd like a letter. So for whatever reason, he decided the letter would be to Steve Smith, who many of you know from Serpent. Unfortunately for Steve, the letter's dated April 3rd, but we're all going to read his letter before he does. I brought 10 or 15 copies. Email me. I'll make sure to forward the letter to both Bob and to Ken, so you can hit their email if you like. I'll get you the original. There's enough in here that I want to read it because, again, to reinforce the point, why do you come to meetings like this when maybe you have people at home who said, why are you going to that meeting tonight? Because it makes a difference. You have to do this. You have to do this. And so I came out because it's my job. I also came out because I love it that night, but they brought up something, and so I talked to Davey, and in, we'll call it friendly encouragement. So let me just read you the business part of this. And the letters from Rich Davey. I'm ready to clarify MassDOT's policy on the introduction of shared use trails along active rail lines. While MassDOT has consistently supported the appropriate development of rails with trails, we've considered their implementation on a case-by-case basis. This method of analysis has, unfortunately, caused unnecessary difficulties and tended to result in little to no progress for proposed rails with trails. Going forward, and you want forward-thinking people in government. Going forward, therefore, MassDOT will, as a matter of policy, permit the construction of shared use paths along active or planned railroad rights-of-way, provided appropriate fencing separates the two uses. Common sense. It gets a little better. Further, the design and construction of such fencing is an eligible project cost for such projects, and MassDOT will participate in funding as appropriate. And so there's the lobbying part of the letter, which I'll save on the way forward, signed by Rich Davey, and he made sure the highway administrator, Frank DiPaolo, Dr. Scott, and David Moeller, the director of planning, are listed. So I'll give one to you right now. You'll circulate it, but I'll get the emails around. So, I'm really excited about that because it was clear to me from our meeting that was a cloud. It had gotten to the level at the planning organizations where they were probably telling people, they don't do that. Well, spread the word. That is now a new policy, and thank Rich Davey. Okay? Now, here's some other good news. There was mention of the Chapter 90 funding and what are we going to do in the bond bills and the governor's plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You'll also note, because I get so excited, I'm talking faster and faster. My goal in any public speaking event is I talk for a certain time, you probably listen for a certain time, hopefully we finish at the same time. I apologize if you finish first. Chapter 90 is a very important program that towns and cities use for their local road and bridge repairs. Sidewalks, things like that. Depending on the organization of your municipality, there are different town officials or city officials who are in charge of it. Sometimes it's the mayor, but sometimes it's separately elected public officials than boards of selectmen. So it varies. But it's a very useful program because it has limited strings, a few, but it comes from the state. Now, the current funding, the last 2 years, the legislature has been able to increase it by a third, from $150 million a year statewide to $200 million. The governor, in the bond bill to implement the Way Forward program that you've heard about, accepted the urging of the Massachusetts Municipal Association for a 50% jump in funding from $200 to $300 million. We had a hearing on it this week in the Transportation Committee, and I can tell you what we call a poll, which is just a request to the members of the committee to express their approval, expedited, separate from the rest of the program, at 4 o'clock today. Poll closes tomorrow. It will be unanimous, I predict. We are sending to the floor the increase to $300 million. How does that translate to bike paths? These projects are eligible for Chapter 90 funding. Some towns have great experience with their local officials. Fairhaven, when that project was going through, my recollection is that Fred Raphael used his Chapter 90 money aggressively in Fairhaven to help the project. Clear the ground, add the non-state and federal funded extension that you have in Fairhaven, entirely on the town's dime. I wish the mayor was still here. But I know there are a lot of people from Fall River, and so he'll be unhappy with me forever. All local officials are about to get a 50% jump in their Chapter 90 monies. Now, for New Bedford, and I presume Fall River, that's several $100,000. These projects, as I say, are eligible. How many programs are getting a 50% jump in funding? I don't know any others. We're going to give them that money because there are important things to do at the local level, the non-state level. It is now your responsibility, and that's why the mayor's probably happy he's not in the room anymore. It is now your responsibility as citizens, if this is important to you, to point out to all these local officials that you just, starting the next fiscal year, July 1, are about to get a substantial increase. Somewhere in that 50% jump in funding, overall, as I say, from 200 to 300 million, perhaps there's an ability, whether you're at a planning money stage, whether it's site preparation, construction, assistance with other funding sources. So don't squander this opportunity. This is what we're hoping by sending this money out there, is that projects like this can be done, and that's the local funding. This is entirely separate from what has been identified as the governor's overall 10-year, $400+ million intended increase in bike path funding. So those are the news part of these. Let me just briefly say, and then I'm happy to take questions as part of the other question part, a couple things about the funding issues. I don't get the luxury of being agnostic on the question of where you're going to find the money. In order, in my view, in order to meet this important need, not just bike paths, but the importance of transportation, the recreational part is important. The fact that, and I watch it in Mattapoisett every day, the fact that people bump into each other in ways they didn't before, people in their own town, and the interaction that occurs there. But also the fact that this really is an alternative transportation means to get people around. And communities, once these things are in place, will have new ways that people are circulating and connecting and doing things once they get built. So these are important projects. That means they have to be paid for. The resources of the Commonwealth, even with the transportation monies that are being spent, as has been said, Rich Davey points out, we can't afford even the degraded transportation system that we have. That means, the euphemism is often revenue, but that means taxes have to be increased if the public wants those resources. So I would also say, and again, I won't get any appreciation from the municipal officials, but we have a couple here. He'll appreciate it. But if people like me at the state level are willing to stand up and say, yes, I think some taxes have to be increased to pay for these things, the municipal officials who are about to get Chapter 90 increased funding and things like that, they have to stand up also and say, in addition to the public that follows this, good idea, I agree. Everybody's against paying more taxes. Nobody enjoys it. But if you see that it's dedicated to directly serving a public need that is valuable, you need to say so. Because I promise you, I will hear from many of the people who, before they even know what the tax is, before they even know what it's for, will say, don't you dare raise anything that constitutes an increase in taxes. So it's our responsibility to spend it well. My advocacy is focused on transportation this year in all modes, not just bikes, but all modes that benefit the Commonwealth. And that's the discussion that we're about to have at the state. Turn it back and be one of those who takes questions if you like. Thank you very much.
Fantastic news there that, I'd like to just say, Bill mentioned Ken and myself, but our whole committee really went on at length in our meetings about that topic about the rails to trails. It was a hot button for us. And Brian Pearson, in fact, I think he sent probably somewhere around 25 different videos of rail trails across the country for us all to see how, and he should really hook up with Craig to get you some of that. If you probably have them on, you guys should just talk.
Quoting Al Lima, who's on our open space committee, you have a vision, you look for opportunity, and then you advocate. And I think that's what we've been trying to do in Fall River. One example is going to DPW or DOT when they have a public hearing. And with the public hearing, we learned that although the state was replacing a road, Plymouth Avenue in Fall River, the plan did not include bicycle accommodation, which is the law. The law is that when the state redoes a roadway, they need to accommodate bicycles. The bicycle committee was there to advocate, and now the work has begun, and over the next 2 years that this work will be a thoroughfare north to south in Fall River. There will be bicycle lanes on road on both sides of the street. So that's a huge huge step forward. We are working with our Fall River Educational Television and the police department to create a short bicycle video that will really focus on safety issues, because in an urban area you really need to be thinking about the safety issues and what parents are worried about and kids, and so doing a safety piece at the same time as we're striping our roads to get from one place to another. The mayor's been very supportive of these efforts and has agreed with the idea of what we're calling the Scholarship City Bike Path on Eastern Avenue, another north-south trek in Fall River that will connect the UMass ATMC to BCC and 3 high schools. So creating safe on-road routes where kids and faculty and staff can commute to school. Transportation is what we need to be thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much.